Wayne, thanks so much for your time. I imagine you've had quite a busy day galvanizing as many South Africans as possible who are just not coping with these record high fuel prices amongst all the other spending challenges we do have. You guys, as a collective, handed over a memorandum to the Minister of Finance. How was that received?
It was well received, but now obviously they've got to study it. I mean, it's one thing receiving it. What happens now is the question. And we also understand that this is not something that's going to happen overnight.
Sure.
But what this is a part of a process in sending a very strong message to government that when you want to tax society, whether it's fuel levies or whatever your avenues are, you need to be very circumspect and understand the impacts that this is having. And what actually has happened, and why we're calling for the fuel levy to be adjusted, remember, government can only control its levies. It can't control the oil price.
Sure.
It has some degree of control over its exchange rate, which also impacts on the fuel price. And that comes through good governance, investor-friendly environments that it creates and so forth. And we're not quite back into that space. But what government has done, it's lent heavily on the commuter, on the motorist, by pushing up these levies. And if you go back to 2008, when the fuel levy was just over R1, well, it is now at R3.30 or close to R3.30, R3.24. You add the road accident fund to that, and you have 30% of your fuel price is in levies. And what happened was, over the last decade, the last 4 years, they accelerated the fuel levy and the road accident fund by an average of 45 cents per annum, whereas the price, the 6 years preceding that, they only averaged an increase of 25 cents. And what's happened over the last 4 years? Maladministration, corruption. We're feeding a pot that is leaking.
Sure. And as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, the board of the RAF has in essence been dissolved because of some of those accusations that of maladministration and corruption.
Yeah, look, I mean, the road accident fund, if you just go back in its time, it was a 40-cent levy, a 44 cents levy 10 years ago. That's now close to R2. They've had massive increases. And what's happened? It hasn't dented their debt. In fact, the debt's gone the wrong way. We see gross maladministration there. We see a big problem looming for government. And we need to ensure that leadership, proper leadership is put in place, systems to stop the plundering that we believe is taking place. And certainly when you start renting chairs at 1,600 Rand a month, something's gone wrong.
Sure. Now, you want the fuel levy to be reduced by R1, right? And you do understand that that's taking from what government receives, a government that is overstretched or has overstretched its own budget seat. Natural question from the Minister of Finance. All right, so we're taking around R1, and that equates to what?
About 23 billion Rand a year.
Right. So where do we get that money from?
So that's exactly a great question. We say to government, and we're saying to them, this increasing of taxes all the time, even coming in February, we say to government, look internally. Look internally at your efficiencies, your bloated government, your maladministration, your auditors' reports, your fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and the corruption. If you fix up and clean your house and get your house in order, you will find all the money you need. And stop continuing this insatiable desire to say, well, we just need more money, so let's go and tax the citizen through the motorist, fuel levies, sugar taxes, sin taxes. I mean, we don't really care about the sin taxes because you've got a choice, just don't smoke or drink or whatever.
Sure.
Fuel levy, fuel levy impacts everyone, the poor as well. So the money's there. It is sitting in government. They've got more than enough money to run this country efficiently with. They just need to go and get their tax collections done properly and stop increasing taxes as the bailout.
And then, Wayne, who else really supports your sentiment here? Because it's hard to divorce the politics from this. And I couldn't help but notice that this protest was being supported by the Democratic Alliance. I don't know if any other political parties are on board here, or if it's politicking from the DA itself ahead of elections that are imminent in South Africa.
Look, I mean, COPE was also there. Think Freedom Front was there. I'm not sure. I know there were 3 parties. There were taxi associations. There were faith-based movements. Now, you've got to understand that there's the space that we play in when we're challenging government. You go into the space of politics because there's a ruling party there, and then you see political parties attacking the ruling party, and suddenly civil society finds itself very often on the same platform. we don't want to entertain necessarily engaging with any political party because we are apolitical. We're not supported by the DA. We're not supported by any political party. We are supported 100% by the citizens of South Africa. So, I mean, you saw it on the e-toll matter back in 2014.
Sure.
We were fighting e-tolls for a long time. The DA also fought the e-toll matter and gained a lot of votes as a result of that. So there's a grey area in this whole space where civil society plays and the political parties participate as well. It's not for us to say you can't come onto the stage where we are playing all the time.
When you say we're fighting e-tolls for a long time,
we are. No, we
Oh,
continue.
I was afraid.
No. What I mean by that is we continue to, but e-tolls is close to being pulled. I mean, it's dead.
All right.
And government has acknowledged that, and they're trying to find a solution. And you can't be half pregnant on tolls. You either toll or you don't. It's failed. They're going to have to pull the plug shortly.
Sure, and I suppose that's a separate conversation we will have. But just, you know, finally, as we wrap, I am told that the ANC government here in Gauteng has also called for, in fact, a halving of the fuel levy. I don't know if you've heard that. And if so, have you engaged them?
Well, I mean, we've heard them say that, and that's great. We would love them to have been with us in the march today. Again, politics at play, certain dynamics probably precluded him from being there. So we'd like to engage with them, but that's their call to government. And I think what you find very often is quite strange when, for instance, ANC government says, pull the plug on e-tolls, halve the fuel levy. This is politicking at its best because they have the direct line to the powers that be that actually make these decisions.
Where to from here?
Well, we continue on our journey because Outa is building a case to take to government, and we're engaging constructively, and part of this is protest of the nature that we've had, but to ask government to consider its appropriations of funds to departments where money is being wasted. Local government is collapsing. We've got to fix that. So we're on a multifaceted, multi-pronged strategy to ensure that government is held accountable, but also to work with them to find solutions to what is a very dire situation, both in local government and in some of these departments where the waste is continuing. Water department, sanitation issues, transport, electricity is a nightmare. So
sure, the list goes on. Wayne, we will have to leave it there. That was, of course, Wayne Duvenage of Outa, the CEO there.